JagaVision. JagaVision episode 53. A little bit of a challenge getting going today. Lots and lots of basically every technical difficulty under the sun to get this going today. But yeah, I'm Jared Nyberg, owner of JagaSilk. Really excited to bring you 53rd week, if you can believe this. We have a really awesome guest joining us today. We're going to be talking to Theo Frederick over at Frederick's Honey in Cedar, BC. Theo, are you there, Theo?
Hi, Jared. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Yeah, I might as well introduce you with you on the line there. Awesome. We're actually going to be drinking some tea together. Theo is the fellow who is the beekeeper, or he's one of the owners of Frederick's honey farm, and they provide the honey for our Kombucha Jun fermentations, and we've never been so pleased as with when we that's the stuff. Right when we started using that, we could just see the difference. It was pretty cool. So Theo, you want to tell the viewers a little bit about Frederick's and maybe about yourself, and we can start maybe making some tea and stuff.
Yeah, sounds good. So our honey farm, Frederick's Honey, is up in Cedar, which is sort of a little rural community in between Nanaimo and Ladysmith. It's about like an hour and 15 minutes north of Victoria. It's a family-run business. So my dad started it back in 1966.
Oh, wow.
And he was a beekeeper that trained in Europe and then moved to Canada, immigrated to Canada after the Second World War, and then I kind of came back 12 years ago and started working directly with him and learning, all the beekeeping tricks and secrets and so on.
And he's pretty unreal, hey, with those the bare-handed beekeeping.
He doesn't like to wear bee equipment at all, so he'll be in a hive without a veil or gloves or anything. He just kind of gets in there. That's kind of like his comfort zone, which is weird, but true.
It is what
he seems to like.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
1966. Sorry, you keep going.
Time.
Yeah,
I was just gonna say, we live on a family farm together, so the honey farm, my parents, we all live on different sections of it. So
right.
My uncle and my dad started it back in 66. So my uncle's 92, my dad's 88, and I live here with my family and so my two kids and my wife. Yeah, we all kind of coexist together with the bees.
And your dad's name is Theo too, right? So
it is.
And and your grandpa, right?
No, my grandpa's not here.
Oh, okay. I always say that there's
my uncle. Yeah.
I always keep telling everybody that there's 3 generations of Theo. That your grandpa's name is Theo as well, but that's not true, hey?
It was like another Theo, yeah.
It was another Theo, yeah.
No, yeah, there was another one.
There was another one. Okay, there you go. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But right now, there's 2 surviving Theos. Your dad's getting on in his years, but he's still a pretty spunky guy. Last time I checked,
he's very spunky.
Yeah,
yes.
And he gets away with some pretty amazing jokes. So yeah.
He does. Yes. You gotta kind of watch him sometimes.
But I'm so I remember going and visiting your farm on my birthday a number of years ago. You guys do those Saturday sessions. I don't know, maybe with COVID it's on pause, but
it is.
But when it's not COVID, if you're interested in beekeeping, I imagine you guys probably do it again. That's
the plan. As soon as we can, we have a free beekeeping workshop 10 till noon on Saturdays, and you just roll up and listen or get involved, and we just go through the hives,
and you do
it's awesome.
The maintenance, and it's oftentimes, I mean, for us, when you helped us set up a hive on top of our carport for a couple of years there, which was pretty sweet. In more ways than one, and and we had a really good time learning. And I just found, for us, I know a lot of people are really involved weekly in their hives, but for us it just seemed like a good pace to open it up once a month, if not once every 2 months. And so go and,
Yep.
and have a session, once a month with you guys and learn a little bit about, okay, what at this time of year you should be, watching out for wasps, or at this time of year you need to watch out for swarming, or all that kind of stuff, these basics. It was really cool
Yeah.
to be able to go and listen in on that. But I remember him just like pulling out the bees out of the out of the hive. It was my first time seeing that, and it was just this like
Yeah.
glorious amount of honey and them all
Yeah.
working away, and
Yeah.
it's pretty
It,
incredible.
yeah, I wear equipment when I go in most of the time.
Yeah.
But,
Well,
he doesn't. There's some people do and some people don't. It depends on what your comfort level is, right? So
did I ever tell you I'm phobic of bees? Like,
you did,
yeah, essentially
You were putting bees on your garage roof.
clinically phobic. Yeah. So I like, on a mental level, like I'm so into them. Like I just like the
Yeah.
appreciation and what they do for, food security, and what they do for just like planet Earth is pretty epic.
Yeah.
And so yeah, my phobia is from when I was like 3 years old, and
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
of the time it was like, the big thing for me was there was a bee on the other side of a window pane, and I went up real close to it, and I said, like, I'm not gonna hurt you if you don't hurt me, okay? and,
That's amazing.
and for some reason, being able to feel safe but still within like
Yeah.
2 inches of a bee was pretty cool. And then now I've learned to recognize when they're a little bit fuzzy. Oftentimes it means they're not a very dangerous
They're new.
one.
Yeah, when they're really fuzzy, they're like the ones that just hatch out of the cells. They're super fuzzy. They're hairy, and then they kind of lose that hair
Right.
as they get older. But my wife is like deathly allergic to bees, which we found out like a couple of years ago.
I remember this.
Yeah, we were up in the mountains beekeeping, and she got stung a bunch of times, and we had to go to the emergency. And then
Yeah.
the doctor said, "That's it, no more beekeeping for you." So,
Wow.
so
and
she
that
walks
can
around
just
with an
happen.
EpiPen.
Yeah, it makes sense. While working on a bee farm with a deathly allergic to bees, that's
Yeah,
it
a bit
is what it
risky.
is, but
Totally.
it is it's a what I found with bees though, and not, I guess some people kind of get confused. I know I did anyways. I apologize for the amateur perspective, but yeah, I really thought that bees were a little bit more aggressive than they are. But if you're not
Yeah.
like in their hive without smoke and like making lots of noise, you're probably
Yeah.
okay, right? Like if you're just walking by a
Yeah.
beehive and they're
They're
just
very gentle, yeah, especially when you're not near their hive. Like if you see them out when they're foraging or drinking water, like it's be pretty rare for you to get stung that way.
yeah.
It's only when they're trying to defend the hive. So if you're too close to the hive or you're trying to go in, that's when you're gonna get stung.
Right.
But outside of that, they're very gentle. Yeah, because they die, right? So they have like a barb, kind of like a fish hook stinger.
Right.
So when they sting you, like that's kind of it for them. So it's sort of like a last resort.
Yeah, and I guess that was kind of a surprise for me because
Yeah.
and then learning that I've really, I think also your father mentioned don't get in their flight path, like if they
Yep.
if they can get, it's not that they want to hurt you, it's they'll get scared because they hit something that isn't supposed to be there, kind of thing, like
Exactly.
if it's
Yeah.
near the hive and stuff. So just staying out of that. And they generally have like a fairly common way that they're going in and out of the hive. So there's like almost like a highway of sorts that they all seem to travel on. And
It
you
is, and it's sort of like this. Like it's not straight. It's like it's like at a certain angle.
Yeah.
Where they kind of come in, but it is like a highway. Yeah. Just
Yeah.
like they kind of come in on this angle, and it's amazing to watch. Like if you see it, it's just like you realize like how many are out there foraging.
Yeah.
It's just like a constant stream, and it doesn't seem like much, but it's over time it's like thousands and thousands of flights, and that's how they make all the honey, right?
So, sorry to our viewers. There was just I had a little bit of a technical difficulty there, but we're back. Okay. And we were just talking about bees and highways and not getting stung and all that sort of stuff, and and then Theo took the opportunity just now to go and boil some water. So
Yep.
hopefully, and look at that. We just looks like we got joined by our other guest today. Looks like we have Sister Speak with us today. So as we do every week, thank you so much for joining us again.
Hello.
Really happy to have you here, Cher.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Theo from when we visited back in on my birthday a few years ago, or actually a number of
I
years ago?
do recall the bees were very, very friendly.
That's good. That's what we like.
Yeah. So,
We don't
you,
want meat bees.
Yes.
wonder if I can actually set this up. I'm gonna try a different screen. My with my technical difficulties today, it's been really hard to get. Normally, what I do is when the guest speaks, it automatically flips to them talking, but that's not possible today. So, give me a moment as I set this up so that our viewers can actually see what's up. But yeah, if you wanna. Sherri, do you want to tell Theo a little bit about what you do? And I have the volume still going while I quickly adjust this so the viewers can hear you. And maybe tell them about Sister Speak.
Sure. I love to play music and do a live stream every week and before this. And I drink a lot of JagaSilk tea and I drink a lot of kombucha with your honey in it.
Oh, nice.
And use
And
and
yeah,
put the honey in the tea and
I put the honey in the tea.
Perfect.
Okay, so there we go. Okay, I got a screen here. It's an unusual one, but it's the three of us talking at the same time. So
All right.
Cool.
this'll work. Okay, all right, yeah, that's gonna work. Okay, yeah. So yeah, Sister Speak, and you got a new album coming out soon for your music project, which is well, not coming out. Sorry,
Yeah.
going to record it soon. But you have a live album that you just released, which is pretty sweet. And Theo, I don't know if you knew this, but Sherri is really involved in our COVID careful background music sessions we do on the final Friday of every month outside in the courtyard. So if you're ever in Victoria on a Friday, which I know can happen from time to time with you guys.
Yeah.
And you feel like you can stick around a little bit. Music starts at 1 and goes until about 3:30, so it might just work out perfect for you.
That sounds amazing. And that's at by the shop down there? In
Yeah,
the courtyard?
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
That's
didn't know that.
perfect.
That's great.
So you could come and have a kombucha and or a tea or something, and you could listen to some tunes. And actually, this final Friday of this month, my music project, Truth and Dolphin, will be performing, and
Wow.
that's always fun. So yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. I'll have to try and check that out. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, please do. Please
Yeah.
do. Okay, so so I figured we could. We were talking a little bit about the project. We can also be drinking some tea while we're talking about it. Today we're making this Yunnan Diazong, and I was gonna just make mine, and I have this this teapot I just really love. Check this thing out! Isn't this beautiful? It's like hand carved, like flowers and stuff, and yeah.
That's amazing. Where did you get that?
This is from Nagoya, from a pottery region called Tokonome, or Tokonomiyaki.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. And so what you're gonna want to do for this one is you wanna basically throw 3 grams of tea
Okay.
into teapot, and you're gonna put oh sorry, before you do that, preheat the teapot.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you're gonna do.
I have a little kit today.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Like
that's
it
nice.
actually holds kombucha and
Nice.
it has a bottle opener on it, and I put like a bunch of different little glass jars for steeping and the strainer and the scale.
Wow.
Amazing.
Did you make that?
No, I found it at like Winners.
Really? That's so cool.
It's so random, right? But everything fits, all the
Yeah.
little jars.
That's pretty
like,
rad. Yeah, that's
different
really awesome. It's
sizes,
like
like-
it was.
I like
You know, there's a bottle opening thing on the side of it, but you know it was meant.
Yeah.
You know it was meant for tea.
Right here. No, but that's
or
what's so cool
kombucha.
about-
I'm
Kombucha. That's
I-
how I
For
opened
your
the
June.
kombucha.
I'm just kidding, but yeah, of course. Yeah. No, this is I'm really good at making really unfunny jokes. Okay, so so we're gonna do.
Three grams of tea.
Yeah, and then 180 grams of boiling water on top of the tea, and then
Okay.
you're gonna set a timer for 3.5 minutes. If not, this tea can handle 4 minutes. Depends on how soft or hard your water is, but in Victoria
Ooh.
here, I would say 3.5 minutes is a pretty good call.
we're on well water, so I wonder if that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, right. So
Oh.
you might find that 4 minutes is where it's at for you. I'm gonna try 4 minutes because I've been drinking a lot of 3.5, and I just want to see what this. The instructions on the package are for 3.5.
Wow, this is really wild. The 3 grams is like really tiny, hey?
Yeah, it packs a punch.
You
can
don't
al-
need much
You can.
for this one.
Well, this is why like English style tea, they would.
Oh
They
yeah,
would-
that
they
is
would-
a very
They would talk about like 1 teaspoon per cup kind of thing.
Ah, because it's more, it expands. It smells amazing.
Yeah,
by the
doesn't
way.
it? Like you got this kind of
Oh my,
like.
it's like an Earl Grey without the added scent.
Yeah, well, that's almost exactly what it is because
Oh, wow.
because what made crimson teas really popular in North America was this region of Yunnan in China, and this is a diazong, and when it says Yunnan diazong, and Yunnan is the region really, and always JagaSilk, we always name our teas after the cultivar. So this particular cultivar is a it's kind of like a heritage cultivar, or like a seed, more like heirloom, you could probably say, in that they don't
Okay.
really. Diazong literally means like big leaf. So you have,
Ah,
you've seen Sherri our Zuyazong and our Chuntizong, right? So
Yeah.
the zong is basically referring to the leaf, and then
okay.
song.
yeah, and then
It's
Zu
all
is
about the
like
song.
it's all about the zong. Yeah, yeah. No, we're.
There's some funny things that could be said there.
There are.
Yeah, I think
and
we have some nice cherry blossoms going on.
yeah,
back here.
yeah.
Yeah, your backyard looks beautiful.
Yeah, it's
Very
cool.
zongy, very zongy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we
Song song.
it's the zong- and then the zong went wrong, right?
Something went wrong with the song.
So 180 grams of water, is that right?
180 grams of water boiling for
Yeah.
for 4 minutes. I think you should probably do
Okay.
with well water, unless you have like an unusually soft well water.
No.
Okay. All right.
Oh,
So
Dad's ready.
yeah, I see that. So essentially what we got going on here is a crimson tea. So we call this black tea in North America, and
Smells good.
but you'll find when we finish the extraction that it's this kind of like this deep amber, and nice and red. So anyway, I was gonna say that this is gonna taste really good with your honey too. Like if one were so inclined, you could
Yeah.
totally do that.
Can I be inclined? Because I would love to.
I
Try it that way.
I suggest trying it without. I'm all about like
Okay.
I'm all about keeping it a little
Straight
bit more.
up?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's not like there's a rule against it, and it's kind of apropos to do it this session because you're here.
Okay.
And
Well, what I can try without honey
Yeah,
first, and
let's-
then add a little bit in.
let's do it. Let's do it.
So, when traditionally would people be drinking this type of tea? Is this like a throughout the day tea? A
Yeah,
morning
well,
tea?
I mean, it's like so region by region, it's going to be different. So like what I found, what's kind of interesting is that if you go to a region that produces predominantly crimson tea or black, what we call black tea, they're going to just call it tea. They're not going to really differentiate. If they mostly produce oolongs, they're just going to call it tea.
Okay.
If they're mostly producing green teas, they're just going to call it tea. So it seems like, yeah, it's not like because this is a crimson tea, you would drink it all day. It's more like because it's a crimson tea that they produce in this region a lot, they just drink it all day. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it does. Yeah,
Okay,
for
okay.
sure.
So in Japan, it's a big part of the conversation is definitely about green teas, right?
Right.
Yeah. So China is considered like the birthplace of tea, like all the different genres: your yellow teas, your white teas, your crimson teas, your black teas, your green teas, your blue teas. Everything's made there. Hey. So, but what made tea really popular was this kind of tea in England anyway, because it travels well, and you can imagine.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, these boats and 3 months on open water and not very good storage and all that stuff. You need a tea that's going to travel well. And really, it was the bricks of tea, the pu'er bricks that are also from this region, that did really well across the Silk Road, right?
So would they compress the tea into bricks? Is that what a brick of tea is, or
generally, when you talk about a brick of tea, you're generally referring to true black tea, or what we call dark, what we call dark tea in North America. Not this genre. This genre was made. They say, there's different stories about it, but it was made really popular because of this desire from the British to, like, this is basically what they were trading for when they went into this sort of export import craziness that caused the opium wars back in the day. So this is but this is basically the kind of tea that caused all that trouble.
Wow.
And it was this kind of rich, very I don't know if brisk is the right word, but there's like a maltiness to it. There's like a chocolate kind of yam thing happening. It's this is what started things off.
It's got an incredible smell to it,
doesn't it?
Yeah.
You can pick up on that yam and that chocolate.
Yeah, it's very deep. Beautiful color too.
Yeah, we talk. One of the tasting notes we often say is like buckwheat honey.
Oh.
So.
Yeah, that's like the strongest honey.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just noticing that the video we have of you, Theo, the top right is there's a bar for the meat call because of how I just said. There we go. Okay, now we can see you.
Okay. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So yeah, let's talk a little bit more about your honey. So when I was there, one of the things that also really impressed me. That's not the right word. Inspired me really was this commitment to record keeping. Like, you guys aren't just winging it. You are very conscious of how much output from what hives and what areas, and like your total, like, I even remember going the most recent visit. There was like an analog scale with a hive on it, and there was like some sort of notes and observations and some scientific approach to understanding just those variations that happen daily. Some pretty significant ones too. You want to talk?
Yeah.
Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, the bees, like, as a beekeeper, your main job is to build up the colony so that it's at a state where it can produce as much honey as possible.
Right.
It's like keep it healthy and keep it strong. But then all the other variables, like, that's sort of in a lot of ways under your control. Like, for the most part, you can kind of control the strength of your hive and how healthy it is by maintaining it and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But production is based on variables that are kind of like out of your control.
Right.
So sort of like weather is obviously the biggest one. So that we get on the island, especially, we get only a few blooms where there's like a honey flow. So the early one would be like maples. Like, the maples up here kind of drop their pollen sacs, and that's sort of like the first major honey flow where we can actually produce honey on the island.
Right.
Some people may argue, but I think consistently that's probably the first one. And then after that is
and not very many people know about that. Hey, the big leaf maple, right? Like, that's a special kind of. Yeah.
It's a special, and it's a beautiful honey, and it's very aromatic, and it's hard to get in quantity where you can extract it and sort of sell it.
Right.
Usually we leave it on, like, this year we just left it on the hives for the bees because the bees need to eat a ton of honey, right?
Yeah.
To grow, right?
That makes sense.
So
it's like milk for cows.
Yeah, that's right. You kind of get these little windows of production, and if the weather doesn't coincide with it, like, say with blackberries, blackberries produce beautiful blackberry honey from the when the blossoms open. But if the weather doesn't coincide and give you sunshine and warm weather, if you get, there's only about 20 days where you kind of can produce blackberry honey, and if it rains for those 20 days, you're not going to get any, right? So so we kind of keep track of all that just to kind of see, like, what the bees are doing, what the weather's doing, when the blossoms open, the blooms opens, when they were done production. So because it kind of changes every year, and it's been trending like earlier for the last like 10 years. Like we move our bees up into the mountains, as you know, because you've been up there. Like
Yeah.
we move them up
What
in
a
the mountains to produce fireweed honey and shallot honey and fir honey. And it used to be like that didn't come in until like mid-August, but now the last like 5-6 years that's been like in July, like mid-July. So it's moved up like almost a full month. So
it must feel like you are experiencing climate change on a very like very
totally.
micro level. You're like, yeah, you know, I mean, obviously
it's real.
it's a complex beast, and you know, you're gonna see just, you know, different pressure systems are gonna adjust as that carbon dioxide builds up in the atmosphere. And one of those effects is going to be definitely a change in how seasons work. And, you know, it's always fascinating to listen to elders in, say, First Nations communities that, you know, have histories going back thousands and thousands of years, and seeing these, like, very specific ways that the environment sort of arranges itself for food production. And to see that kind of go all awry is quite a scary thing, you know? So, and, yeah, and... And you experience not only changes in temperature, but I remember the forest fires too, right? Like that's.
Yeah, that's another big factor is moisture. Like if there isn't moisture in the ground for the plants, like they're not going to produce nectar, right? Especially with like fireweed. Fireweed is pretty finicky.
Right, makes sense.
So you could have heat, but if you don't have moisture in the ground, like it's not going to produce any nectar. So, yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah.
The environment is. Out of like that part is out of our control, right? We have to be good to it.
Well, what does your instinct say for this year? Is this a year where you feel like so far so good? Are we on a good trajectory in terms of stability for production, or is it hard to say right now? Or
it's still early, so it's hard to say. There's still snowpack up in the local mountains, which is good, but it's been pretty dry. Like the spring has been fairly dry.
Interesting.
So, and my pond is low.
Huh.
That's kind of like I go by the pond.
That's awesome.
The pond is lower than usually is.
If you're in a good place, that means that this climate is in a good place. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. There's a hummingbird at my house here. I'm gonna try and get it up.
Oh,
it went outside. Okay, good. Oh. I had a hummingbird that flew in, but it's gone now.
That's so awesome. So we were just talking while you were away there, Sherri Ann, about just how the different times of years there's different flows and how things are changing. You could hear okay while you were on mute there?
Yeah, I could hear okay. There was just a little bit of a audio visual thing happening here.
I see. And
a very, very loud everything just in the neighborhood.
Yes. Sometimes when Sherri Ann does her live streams on Thursday, she always does them every Thursday for her music project, Sister Speak, right? She sometimes has to compete with leaf blowers and lawnmowers and
stuff. Yeah. Awesome, yeah.
which is always a joy. Okay, so one of the projects we've done with Theo, just so our viewers know, is this single yard honey that we were pretty excited about, and I think we would have sent some to Sherri Ann too a couple Christmases back.
I remember that honey.
Yeah, and the idea that we thought it would be so cool. Like what we love to do with tea is we love this idea of things being unblended, because we feel that it really helps you understand the constituent parts of a blend. So say like I have a matcha that we'll be drinking next week with an ice cream maker in Calgary actually. And we're pretty excited about it. But that one has 5 cultivars in it. So there's like Samidori, Okumidori, Yabukita, Goko, like all these different varieties. So in the world of apples, Gala apples, Red Delicious are, they say, you want Granny Smith for your apple pie, so you have that acid quality that you can kind of cut with sugar and get this really interesting tartness and all that stuff. So there's, different varieties of different plants are going to play a role in that end flavor. And so the idea was like, you sometimes go we'll go and taste some of your honeys, and you'll have the fireweed and you'll have the blackberry, and it was just so interesting to go, okay, well, especially even with tea though, like we get into microclimates. Like right now we have a Shimoyama, Fukada, and Okuda, which are 3 different microclimates from the same farm. It's all the same variety, but we're just like being able to taste how things change with that microclimate is so fascinating. And so we were able to get longitude and latitude coordinates from you for a particular area on Green Mountain near where you are, right?
Yeah.
And put that on the bottle or on the jar and had way too much fun with it. Man, the response was amazing. Like people were like, "This is the best honey ever." And I just, I don't know if, like I'm reminded of this study where, have you heard about it, where they gave these, I don't know, they hooked up these judges' brains to like this machine that measures the pleasure centers in their brain, and they asked them what they thought of different wines, and the judges thought they were being asked to like judge wines, but really it was their opinion didn't matter. It was just whether or not it tripped the sensors in their brain that made them sense flavor. And so they're given this one red wine, and it was like, Joe's red wine, bought at a gas station. They don't know the year. They drank it. And they're like, actually, that's pretty good. And then they're like, well, what about this one? It's like from Paris. It's like this cultivar, it won a gold medal. This is the soil structure. This is the cultivar. They had just so much data. And they drank that, and the pleasure centers went through the roof. And it was the same wine.
Whoa.
Oh, really?
And so like the story and the placebo effect of understanding that story, like human beings really connect with relationships on a very practical level too. Like things literally taste better when we understand the relationships a bit better. So I thought it was so interesting to see that with the honey, where it was like, technically it's basically the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was...
Yeah.
Well, maybe you could explain better than me. You want what is the difference between your regular honey that you make all the time, your beautiful regular honey, and the single yard honey that you did for us that year?
Well, I think like you said with tea, like it's always a little bit different because of microclimates.
Yeah.
Right. So, our yards are we have like yards of 30 to 60 hives that are up in different parts of the mountain in the summer. So like the honey that's produced in one yard will be a little bit different from another yard, just because like the flora in that area might be a little bit different. Like maybe there's more fireweed and less shallot, or more fir and more mountain wildflower or whatever. So it's always like a little bit different. So kind of like the tea, like you said, like each one is like a microclimate. And then sometimes it'll, like, the bees tend to be like flower steady. So they'll, if they get on a fireweed and the fireweed's producing, because, the humidity and the temperature and everything is perfect for the fireweed plant to produce nectar, sometimes they'll just produce straight fireweed, which I think is like quite similar to what you got from that one yard.
Yeah, you said there might have been like some fir needle in there or something, which was interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
But mostly fireweed, right? And
yeah, so it's always a little bit different.
Yeah,
it's always a little bit different every year. Yeah, even the same yard will be different. So,
and those who are watching from not in Canada, if I don't know, if I believe fireweed is native to this area. You have to if I'm speaking out of ignorance, I'm sorry, but that's my understanding. It's just like a
Dad would know.
Yeah. Our dad's a wild crafter, or was a wild crafter, so but
oh, really?
Yeah, he was harvesting some interesting greens for florists when we were growing up. So
wow, really?
Yeah. But he it's interesting to think about what that does for the flavor. And I know like fireweed's pretty popular, right? Like when you put fireweed honey out, that's something people gravitate towards. And
it is.
And what you normally do though, just again put in context the single yard, is you have something like, how many hives do you have at any given year?
It's like between 400 and 600 is usually what we try and run.
And how many hives do you put in a particular yard, generally speaking, if you were going to average it out?
Usually like 60 is like the most we want to put in one area. Between like 30 and 60. 30, I can fit 30 on my truck. so 30 on my truck, and then 2 trips, so around that.
Do you think we could do it again this year? Do you think it's feasible? I know last year was really challenging.
For sure, yeah.
But I'd really like to make it happen. Like this is live. Okay, officially requesting.
That would be great.
Yeah. Okay. I would love.
Remember, we got turned around last time because they were there up by the logging trucks. Remember?
Yeah, we were
We
gonna
went
go
up
out
there.
and actually see Green Mountain. So you had to take
Go
us
way up.
to an area that was a little different. I mean, imagine this year you probably don't put them always in the same place, right? Because you want to kind of, you know.
We use the same yards, yeah,
Okay.
but same area. Yeah, we use the same yards. Like, cause so what happens is like they'll log,
Uh-huh.
especially with fireweed. Like they log, and then the fireweed it has a chance to grow. It's
Okay.
good for like about 7 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll use a single yard, like a yard, until the new forest comes up and kind of passes the fireweed, which usually takes about 10 years.
Oh wow. Okay. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's you get a yard for a while.
For a while. Yeah,
How much life do we have left in Green Mountain? Are we on?
quite a bit. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
they've logged quite a bit there, so it should be
Oh,
good for a while. It's
it's
sort of like,
yeah.
it's part of it.
It's
Yeah.
it's a sad part of it. So you are gonna. Do you think we should try a different yard? Will we taste a different flavor from a different
Yeah,
microclimate? That might be
I think
interesting.
that would be great. Yeah,
Yeah.
we could try maybe Mount Hall, which is behind Ladysmith.
Sweet. Okay.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is still covered in snow, so that's like a good sign. Like, there'll be lots of moisture coming into the summer months. So
Okay. It's like
yeah,
an ideal
it's
area.
perfect.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's beautiful too.
That would be
Beautiful
amazing.
area.
Mountain Hall. We'll
Yeah.
put it on the kombucha. We like to do that. We put I think we put when it's single yard, we like really emblazon it on the label so that people can see like what yard
Yeah.
that it came from, and that's
Yeah.
and we. So I have a question for you.
Mhm.
We take a bricks reading of our kombucha, and one of the things that can interfere with that reading is definitely yeast and sort of other sort of things in the liquid that are going to interfere with how light travels through it when it's giving us this reading. But like essentially it's a refractometer, and if it was just like sugar and water, we'd be able to see, roughly speaking, how many grams of sugar there is per 100 mils in solution. And when we're measuring when we're measuring the kombucha, what we do notice is that from generally when you send us one batch, it's
Mhm.
pretty consistent. But then the next batch, it'll read a little bit higher, or a little bit lower. Is there like a concentration of sugar that happens maybe low? I know you put your sugar, your honey into these big vats.
Yep.
Is the
Mhm.
bottom of the vat like a sweeter, more condensed honey than the top? Is there a mixing that happens? Like how do you what is it that would cause these changes? Sometimes it's as much as like 6.5 all the way to 10
Interesting.
on the bricks meter, and it could just be our tools and the situation. But it seems
No. And
yeah,
is that like a moisture reading, or is that a?
that's basically so how it looks for us. And again, I don't even know if it's honey. It could be just what we're doing on our end. But we mix the tea extraction with
Mhm.
water. We make like a really strong tea extraction, a cold one, and it
Mhm.
makes it like really fruity, floral, awesome. And then we feed the ferment with your honey by
Mhm.
melting it in 40 degrees centigrade water. We're trying not to pasteurize it because I know you're really
Yep.
careful with not
Yeah.
pasteurizing your honey, and so we want to keep that rawness, right?
Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
we float a SCOBY on top, which is going to give us that. Well, it's a
Yeah.
symbiotic community of bacteria and yeast, right? So there's going to be yeast that's going to kind of tendril down a bit. We give it a nice stir in this big like, they call it 1 BBL. It's like it's actually a 200-liter vat that we put
Yeah.
it all into. And then what we do is we take a few we take some of that, and our reading can only measure as high as 5, so we dilute it a little bit with like half and
Okay.
half on a scale
Yeah.
with water, and then we stir it really well, and then we put a few drops on the refractometer, and we take a peek, and
Yeah.
we've been generally like our data seems to show that in particular shipments we'll be reading like, 7 or 8 bricks, and then another shipment will be closer to
Yeah.
10. And I was just always
Interesting. Yeah.
just
I think like we're talking about before, like the honey that comes in is always like a little bit different, like as the different flowers bloom, and some honey will have more moisture or less moisture.
okay.
And the concentration, like it's never a consistent um, source of nectar flow.
Right.
It's always changing, like as the weather changes, as the moisture in the ground changes,
Mhm.
the amount of time that the bees have to sort of within the hive sort of deal with it changes kind of everything, like the sugar content and everything,
Right.
which is why like honey is always like a
Wow.
little bit different,
Yeah.
right?
Every
Because
time.
it's not really, like we just, I mean, all we're doing is we take it and then we spin it and that's pretty much it. Like, so the bees are the ones that are really like kind of putting it together and curating it, making the they have the recipe, right?
Right.
We're just kind of
Sort of,
like processing it. Yeah, after that.
It's interesting too because that's the real deal, right? Like there's the big players are often taking, say, pollen, and they're taking, say, some BC pollen, and then they'll buy vats of honey from a cheap producer that maybe isn't as clean, and then they'll like spin out all of that pollen that's already in there, and then they add the BC pollen so that when it gets, it's kind of like a BC honey that way, in a horrible way.
Right.
And then
Wow.
sometimes they don't even reinsert the pollen. They're just like removing it. It's basically, you might as well be drinking corn syrup, right? So it's interesting that real deal honey is real deal. Like you're getting a lot of nutrition. You're really getting, there's talk about how it really helps with some people even said it helps with hay fever because you get that, having
local pollen.
your local pollen and sort of introducing it to
Allergies.
your system is actually really helpful for your body to navigate and understand that local environment. So there's something very basic and integral about real deal honey. I think that and I love that.
And
I
it's
think
living, right?
Yeah, it's
Like
living.
it's a living thing. Yeah, so and it crystallizes, which is sort of if you keep it raw, like it'll eventually crystallize, but that's a good sign. It shows that it's it's still alive and still has all the enzymes that you want your honey to have, right? So,
Right.
Also, honey actually has enzymes.
and it's like sometimes people get turned off when they see a jar of honey that's starting to crystallize, it's starting to harden,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still totally edible. Honey never goes bad. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it like apparently like bacteria can't really grow in it. Like,
Yeah,
how does that work? So how does that work with the
I'm not
kombucha?
sure.
Apparently that's pretty moisture indicative. So like if you bacteria will grow in the honey if you were to dilute it with water. Like that's how, think about mead, right? Like mead is essentially, and I think actually our kombucha brewer Jared Virani, the fellow who helped co-found the program, he would often dispel that myth. He'd be like, it's not that honey is by its very nature. I mean, it is by its like lack of, there is like an acidic, of an antibacterial quality to it, but it's not like it's if you dilute it, you're not going to just suddenly still have this really challenging environment for a fermentation to occur. Like you can, if you have yeast and sugar, and you have the temperature and the environment for it, you're gonna grow some microbes, and sometimes they're gonna be great. Sometimes you're gonna produce a ferment that's gonna produce alcohol as its byproduct, and sometimes you can go and you can produce something that's actually kind of toxic for your system. So you better be careful and know what you're doing. But honey.
You can get it tested.
Yeah, totally. But honey, by its very nature, isn't just like automatically gonna mean that you're protected against bacteria, I guess is a way of looking at it. But a lot of it, as far as I understand, and I could be wrong here, I don't want to say that I'm just quoting this perfectly, but as far as I understand, that dilution does play a major role in the fact that there isn't a lot of water in honey, plays a major role in that fact that it can basically stay good for. What did they find honey in King Tut's tomb? I think is the very famous example, and it's still still good, right? So thousands of years later.
I had a lady that found a jar of honey from the 1940s. Like she was in Ladysmith and she's cleaning out her mom's house, and it was like black. Yeah. Because I guess like the waxy content in it turned it like jet black.
Yeah.
And so she brought it. I have it in her shop, and I tasted it though, and it tasted like it was sweet. I wouldn't eat a whole tablespoon of it, but you could, it was still, I would say maybe good to eat still. It tasted fine. Yeah, it was sweet. It tasted pretty good, but yeah.
That's really fun.
So
that's really fun.
It's kind of amazing.
Huh.
Yeah.
Does do
Whoa.
you find that? But I guess you might have already answered this question, but maybe you didn't. Is there a concentration, a change of flavor, crystals, enzymes, all that stuff, like in the honey solution that falls? As like, do you find a difference in the the
like
top
to the
of the
bottom of the.
the
No,
bottom of the vat versus the top of the vat kind of thing, or?
no, it's funny. Nobody's ever actually asked that before, and
Okay.
I've never. I don't think so,
Okay.
but I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. You
Yeah,
know,
I really don't know. I've never noticed that. Like, it's always seems to be pretty consistent. You will kind of notice that when honey crystallizes, and I don't know if that's a heat thing or not, but it does tend to crystallize bottom up,
right.
like
Mhm.
in a jar. So
This is what
but
made me think
I
of
don't-
it. I was like, maybe
Yeah.
there's like a, and I noticed that in when I and actually what made me think of it as well is that, like, when I test the batches of kombucha before the fermentation has consumed some of those sugars, and even really later on in the game, there's a much greater concentration of that mass in the bottom. Obviously, we're mixing in water, so there's going to be
Right.
a separation, but honey as
Yeah.
well. Like, honey is essentially, they're flapping their little wings, those bees, and dehydrating it, but they're not getting it to a place where it's like a perfect solid, right? And so
No,
so
and we
it
measure
seems-
it as well. Like, I also have a is it refractometer? Is
yeah,
that-
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so we measure the moisture content of the honey as well. So
Okay.
and in theory, like, the lower the better. Like, the
Yeah, yeah.
thicker the honey, the better. But
How do you
Um,
I'm very interested in this kind of stuff. So you
Mhm.
use so you're using a refractometer to measure the sugars in your honey, or are you using something else
No,
to measure the
the
moisture?
moisture content.
What is the
Yeah.
tool that you're using called, and how does it work? Out of
Mm.
curiosity.
Yeah, it's very similar to what you described. It's it just I don't even know the name of it because it's all German,
Okay.
or they're from Germany.
Yeah.
I just basically put a little dab of honey on, it's like a glass lens,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and it'll give you what the moisture content is. Usually it's like, we try and get it under 8%.
Oh,
Is
interesting.
kind of what it is. Yeah, I could show you next time we see you.
Yeah, I'm so into this
Cool.
stuff. Yeah.
It's probably the same thing, maybe something similar that you have, but
Maybe.
it's pretty
Maybe.
common. Yeah.
I know I only asked you for 45 minutes of your time, and we're already at 2:10. Do you need to go? I was going to suggest we make a second steep of the tea and just kind of wrap
Oh.
up slowly, but we can wrap up quickly
Sure.
if that's better for you.
No, I'm okay. My kids get home in
Okay. Sherri, are
20
you okay?
minutes, so
Are you
I'm
okay for like another 10 minutes ish?
Yeah, I got about exactly that.
Okay, awesome. All right, so let's just make this second steep because I think it's worth
Okay.
enjoying, and we can just
Yeah.
Yes,
we can wrap up this
definitely.
conversation slowly rather than all of a sudden.
Should we do? I guess you don't reuse the old stuff, hey?
I do.
Is that-
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Oh,
this
do you?
is,
Okay,
this is,
good.
This is the
Yeah.
second infusion. So we just pour
Okay.
instead of 180 grams on top, we got to make room for some of that absorption. So I would say generally, what I found is there's about 5 to 10 grams absorbed out of 180 grams. So I'm gonna pour 175 grams on this one since it was such a low visible dose of tea. I have this sense that it's not going to have absorbed a whole whack. So
175.
you can also try making this tea a little different next time, Theo, where you could use double the dose, and you
Okay.
could do a much faster infusion. Like I'm talking
yeah.
I'm talking like 20 seconds maybe.
What would the different, like, is just the time factor the benefit in that, or?
You get a multi-layered experience. So this is kind of like
Okay.
actually we were just talking about this at JagaSilk yesterday, where we were talking about, like, when you're making a botanical extraction, do you want to get everything out of it in that first extraction? Is that your goal? Or is it more interesting to get a layered, journeyed sort of approach? And so it's kind of interesting to do a hot infusion with a lot
Ah,
of
I
tea in a micro sort of like a minimal steep time, and then just keep on doing it over and over again. And that's kind of the benefit of the little teapots. Like one of my favorite teapots, I use it a lot on the show, is this little where is it? My Yixing teapot. Yeah, this holds about 3 ounces of water, right?
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
it's really, really fun for just doing a quick infusion. This is a little bit more porous than this one, which is a little bit more dense. And apparently, we had another fellow on the show who's an expert in teapots, and he was saying the dense teapots are going to help to keep in a bunch of the aromatics on more aromatic teas. We're drinking more of an earthy tea right now, so they would actually be really ideal in something like this, where you could draw out some more of that basiness and that very earthy grounded flavors that we're tasting in this particular.
I love the smell of those.
I know, hey.
I'm like obsessed. But I think while you're talking, both Frederick and I are just going.
Yeah, it's
just smelling it.
Yeah, that's awesome. You
I
know,
feel like a little kid right now. I'm like,
that's funny.
It's like candy, and it's tea. It's like no sugar added. It's crazy.
Yeah, you know, you know, speaking of sugar though, we were talking about potentially throwing in some honey. So you know.
Oh yeah.
But you know.
Yeah, let's do it.
You know, wait, what can happen? Sorry, Frederick. That's funny. Theo. Is
Theo, I called you Frederick, but
it's okay.
Do you get that all the time? Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, I'm just people called my brother Nyberg in school.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Me too. That was my name in field hockey.
It was Nyberg. There you go. I've never been Nyberg. I've I've always
Make it happen right now, Nyberg.
Yeah, Nyberg sounds super cool.
Frederick's
Hey,
pretty
Nyberg.
sweet.
Nyberg.
Yeah. So okay. So we're gonna throw in some honey now. One of the things that we do when we actually do a wild honey matcha latte here that we do with as a feature drink with your honey, Theo, as well. And so for our viewers, if you can get some Frederick's honey, and you can go to, I think your webpage is like frederickshoney.com or something really easy to remember, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we ship all over the place. So.
But what's important for those listening, it's Frederick spelled different than you think. It's like rich and poor. Frederick.
Yeah.
That's how you spell it. So Frederick's with an S, honey.com, and you're going to be in a good place. So if you go there, you grab that, and we do like a half and half. So we'll actually weigh out 50% honey, 50% water, and then we'll we'll make it happen. You know, interesting anecdote actually. When we were making our brewing recipe, again, Jared Varani was built it around like talking about like liquid amounts. And so he was kind of assuming that it was an 80% sugar, 20% water. I think that was how we were thinking. So it's interesting to hear from you that it's 8% water. That's what you go for.
Yeah, it's probably like 8 to 11 is usually what it is. So every batch is different.
Is that an industry standard or is that a Frederick standard?
No, well, so I think it's under 18%. I could be wrong. But I think it's like under 18% water is like a number 1 grade honey.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So there's different grades, and I think it's under 18%.
18% or less is grade 1. So why don't you add water and make more money?
Well, yeah, I don't know.
I don't want you to do that. Don't do that.
No.
Joke.
Like I said, like we just basically our job is just to take what the bees have made and put it into the jar.
Okay.
With the least amount of influence as possible. So whatever they decide is kind of what we try and do.
So how do you know they're done? Is using this tool and measuring 8%, or is it like how do you know the bees are done and that it's ready to harvest? And maybe that can be our final question today, unless Sherri has another one after that. Sorry, go ahead.
We go into the hive and then especially in the summer, because we have to move the bees out of the mountains before the bears start thinking about hibernation, or like if we leave the bees in the mountains past September, we're really kind of in the danger zone, because that's when the bears get really active and really aggressive, like really will go after the hives. So that's basically like we have to harvest by then. But usually what the bees will do is they pack the cells, the honeycomb full of honey, and then they kind of dehydrate it by flapping their wings, as you were talking about earlier. Yeah. And then the kind of, when it's ready, is what they'll do is they'll cap it with a thin layer of beeswax. Okay. So that's sort of like the final, that's like the bees saying, okay, this honey is good. this is done, and they'll
It's,
put a
it's
thin
capped.
layer of beeswax. Yeah,
So
when it's capped.
do like other folks in the industry harvest the honey before it's capped, or and that's why they might be closer to 18%? Like what? Why is yours closer to
Yeah.
8% and theirs closer to 18? It seems like
I think it's just more where we are, like in the region that
Okay.
we are, like on the islands. Like I don't know, I've never tested anybody else's honey, so I assume that they're probably around the same.
that'd be an
But
interesting
maybe
interesting thing to do. Hey, like just see
it would be, yeah,
what's the norm in the industry? What is like the big conglomerates? What is theirs? Is it perfectly 18%? And if so, it might just be
yeah,
a way for them to, it's like extra air in your ice cream. That's you get that really cheap ice cream. It's just like
yeah,
it's mostly just added air because
yeah.
most of us just buy ice cream by volume. We don't think about mass when we're buying ice cream, right? So
That's very true. I mean, there is big machines that actually will dehydrate honey as well, like take some of that moisture out.
Oh.
Yeah, so
so we gotta go the
yeah.
other way, right? Because
Yeah.
we gotta turn into this evil honey empire. And
Yeah. Yeah, we try not to do any of that. So we just kind of take it out and extract it.
Speaking of not being sorry, Sherri, I've just been taking over this entire conversation. You probably have a question. We got.
Oh, I'm just like agreeing with everything. I was just thinking about how phenomenal it would be to make an ice cream, like a coconut based ice cream.
Oh.
And with this tea and Frederick's honey.
Oh yeah.
One of our dessert chefs made it wasn't with coconut, but it was with organic cow milk. Did a wild honey ice cream for JagaSilk
really?
for the dessert program. It was pretty dope.
Wow, maybe you can even do like a frozen yogurt.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that'd be, and the texture would be nice too.
Yeah, it would be.
Like that kind of, it would change the texture a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a couple places in Nanaimo that like burnt honey and cold front gelato, and they use the honey and it gives it in their gelato, and it's like amazing. Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's really nice.
Yeah. We have again, I was saying 10 minutes ago, but some of the people watching, they're going to be talking about ethics. Curious about that. Remember a while back I had a vegan restaurant that we were supplying, and they're like, we can't do honey because it's not vegan. And it was curiosity for me because like I'm personally I try to stay away from meat, but I still eat eggs, and I guess I still eat honey. And why is it that people would be against honey if they're vegan? And apparently there's this whole issue with like tearing the wings off of the queen and stuff like that. Before we go, you want to talk about what that industry standard, I guess, might be? I don't know if it's a standard, that what people are afraid of and what you do different.
Yeah, I mean, we don't clip the bees first of all off like, so what some places will do, they will clip the wings off of queens so that they can't swarm, basically.
Right.
Because part of what we do, especially this time of year, is swarm prevention. We go through the hives because if they get too big, they will create a second queen, and then half the population will leave the hive to create another colony. So by clipping the wings, you're kind of preventing that because the hive can't swarm. Right. I believe that's the reason behind it, but we would never do that. We don't even mark our queens. Like we try and work with them as much as possible, but I do understand, like I've talked to a bunch of vegans, they aren't for it. It's interesting because a lot of vegans don't like beekeeping, but sometimes they don't realize that being a vegan a lot of the time is like you're eating lots of fruit and lots of things that require commercial beekeeping to help produce the stuff that they're eating, right?
We live in an ecosystem.
So there is a relationship there. I think it's
so you believe beekeeping is doing more good than damage to the environment when done in this way?
Yeah, absolutely. I think bees are essential, especially if you're going to live like, I mean, I could be wrong, but like, I mean, like fruit and nuts, like depend like very heavily on the bee pollination, right?
Right.
So it's important. It like anything, I think as long as you're treating the bees with respect and you're ethical when you're doing your beekeeping, it's it's okay.
And we see the kindness from you guys when we're out there. We're like,
Yeah.
there's a certain. You guys are like, it's like you have a dialogue and
Yeah,
and
we wouldn't want to we wouldn't want to harm bees. Like we're reliant on them like as part of our lives. You know, like they're really important to us.
Yeah.
So and there's also something called like vegan. We get vegans in the shop too, so the vegans that eat honey.
vegans. That's awesome.
Vegan,
you know, there is no V and B differentiation in Japanese.
Really?
So Vancouver is Bankuba. You know, so it's so maybe that's.
I didn't know that.
I'm just joking. Okay, so it's true. That is true, but there's no connection to the vegan. Yeah.
The vegan.
Yeah, the vegan. That'd be a good cafe. The vegan.
Yes.
And then you don't spray either. I wanted to let people know that too. Like you're not doing the poisons that kill. Like you're not doing like this harsh. There's a lot of chemicals that can go into killing the mites that are otherwise going to cause hive collapse, right? So you're careful to use.
Yeah.
Am I speaking like? Am I?
No, you're right.
Okay.
So we're not an organic certified beekeeping operation.
Mm-hmm.
We do practice organic methods wherever like. But if we do have an issue, like, you know, it's pretty complicated, but we practice organic beekeeping unless we have like a major issue that has to be dealt with, right? So it's kind of, it's a tricky
tea farmers we work with too. They say minimal intervention, but if they're going to lose everything, they're going to intervene.
Exactly. That's exactly how we are too. Yeah. That's exactly the
same. How was it last year? Am I drinking honey that is I hate to ask you this live, but like am I drinking poisoned honey or am I
Oh no.
Okay.
No.
Okay, are we in a good place last year?
The honey is very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's reassuring.
We're happy with how it went last year, so
okay,
and we'll see how it goes this year. Like it's still early in the season, so
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, thank you, Theo. I don't know, Sherri, did you have a final question for Theo before we go?
I just is it just me or does it's probably psychological, but does this tea taste like it has a little honey in it without the honey?
It does. Yeah, it does.
I think that's one of the tasting notes is honey.
Is it? Is it actually on? I think it is. What do you see the tin in front of you?
The taste,
right here.
Yeah. Does it say honey as a tasting note?
It says rose yam and stewed
apricot.
Okay.
Yeah. Apricot.
Yeah.
Tomato.
Delicious.
Good.
I put a little bit of honey in this one. And it's very nice.
Did it enhance it?
It's just really different.
Yeah.
Did it make it extra zongy?
It's very zongy.
Okay. I'm doing it.
Is strong.
The zong is strong with this one. Okay. All right.
Oh, it's so good.
Use the zong, Luke.
Is it working for you? Am I allowed to use metal, or is that kind of like a weird old wives' tale that I shouldn't use metal in my honey? I just don't normally, but.
Oh, like your spit?
Yeah.
I mean, I do.
Okay.
I think you can.
Okay.
What about? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just thinking about like I had this idea. It could be completely wrong, that it feels like honey kind of has a natural like semi-extracting presence. Like, and it makes me nervous about plastic in honey.
Oh yeah. Well, that's a good. Like, if it would suck out some of the elements of plastic.
Yeah.
We prefer, like, we put all of our honey in glass jars.
Yeah.
I don't know if it does. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure.
you do a lavender honey, and I think you were the one that told me it takes a really long time to get it to have.
It takes a long time, yeah.
But doesn't mean it's impossible. I guess it's how long it spends in the container. Hey, if we were gonna guess here.
Yeah, I'll have to research that.
Yeah, it's a good question.
I'm not sure.
Okay,
yeah, that's a very good question. Wish I knew the answer.
I would guess yes. It's gotta be extractive. But thank you. I'm gonna drink this. I want to Theo, if you have any maybe some final comments on the tea, on the honey, on the show, to Sherri, to us, to our viewers before we go.
Oh, this was so much fun. This tea is amazing.
Really good with honey.
Really, yeah, it's different with honey.
It is,
it's like a very And then you have the show this Friday?
No, it's Final Fridays. So every
Final Fridays.
yeah, every
Okay.
final Friday. So if you want to come check it out, it's
Okay.
it's free reservations. If you want to make sure you have a table, then you can actually go onto JagaSilk.com online store. There's like a music section, and you can
Okay.
you can book a free reservation so that we know you're there. We'll put a table aside for you, kind of thing. Or you
Oh,
can just
wow.
show up. But last week, or it was the final Friday, and we were full capacity. It's all very carefully distanced. We
Mhm.
have a lot of restrictions with the pandemic
Yeah.
that we're trying to be very safely mindful of and careful of. But they're there. And so, at any moment's notice, I think everybody understands that things could change again, and could be like,
Yeah.
I think in Alberta, there's no patios anymore right now.
Oh,
Like
really?
they went next level. They're like highest rate per 100 people in all of North America right now, or something like that. I can't remember. Like,
That's not good.
yeah. So
Okay.
it's really intense. So we just,
Yeah.
it's the fourth wave or third. I can't even remember what wave we're on right now, but it's keeps on coming. So we got to be even more. It's so contagious right now. So anyway, we're being really careful. Everything's like
Good,
carefully
good.
sprayed down. Services in visors and masks. Like we're going all out. Like we're
Yeah.
trying,
Go
trying to be.
outside too.
Yeah, it's all outside.
Nice.
Yeah, and
That
like,
sounds like so much fun. I'll have to come down and check it out.
yeah, it would be lovely to have you
Oh.
down. It would be lovely to have you
Yeah.
down. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much, you guys. Nice to see you.
Sherri,
Nice to see you.
Sherri, did you have any final things to say to Theo or about the tea or to the viewers before we go?
Yeah, the tea's amazing, absolutely delicious, and the honey's amazing. The kombucha's amazing. So, where can I buy your honey in town?
In Victoria, geez, I think there's the Market Garden.
Okay.
Yeah, the Market Garden. Jared, do you have some honey left?
I have honey. I don't. I should get little jars from you, hey, and just have it retail available. I've been thinking about it forever
Yeah.
with my. I do the single yard. We will get the single yard back this year, and when we do
Yeah.
have your honey in stock, it's pretty
Yeah.
awesome. So yeah, let's do.
Oh, I was buying that all last March. I was buying it every month,
Yeah.
and we're having it shipped to Vernon from JagaSilk.
Yeah, it was tons of fun. It was tons
My
of fun.
mom loves it too.
Yeah, that was
That's
the
awesome.
that was the last of the stash. We kept a little
Yeah,
bit.
I think
This-
we got the last ones. We
Yeah.
just kept buying it, and then I think
Are
they
you-
also had a ratio. Vernon, did they?
Yeah, they had it. They had
And
it.
we bought it out. We bought them out there too. We
Oh my
bought
goodness.
Yeah, we had it to our wholesalers. We just little bits of it, with the people that really were digging the single yard stuff. So, well, this year
Oh, that's
sounds
cool.
sounds like we'll have a different single yard, and maybe we can even go visit it if the restrictions are a little bit more kind to us and the pandemic's kind of subsiding. Hopefully, we'll
Yeah.
be there when it's closer to that time.
That would be great.
But yeah, thank you to you both. Again, you can go to fredericshoney.com, check out Theo, not Frederick's project, Theo Frederick's project. Sherri Ann, you can go and check out her sisterspeakmusic.com. You should really go and listen to some tunes on there.
I will for sure.
Live album's fantastic. But all of her work is great. And patreon.com/sisterspeak if you want to follow her on Patreon for our viewers. Every Thursday does a live stream that I'm often a guest on. She drinks tea. We've been her tea sponsor for over a decade, and it's the nepotism here. For those who don't know, she is my sister, but career musician and hundreds of shows a year, and does it for a
Awesome.
living. Blows my mind. Super inspiration. Yeah, appreciation to you both, guys. I'm so happy about today. It was such a pleasure having you on the show, Theo, and always a pleasure to have you on the
Yeah,
show.
thank you.
Sherri Ann. Okay.
Thank you.
You guys take care. Okay.
Bye, guys.
'Kay.
Take care.
Peace. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
So that was Theo and Sherri Ann joining us for JagaVision episode 53. So it's 53 weeks solid. You want to go check out the show archives. If you're watching this right now, you might be you click on the subscribe button and you'll get notifications for when we go live next. Every Thursday, 1 o'clock. Next show, we're going to have Marcus on from Made by Marcus, and we're going to be talking about tea and ice cream. And the approach that Marcus takes to ice cream is very artesian. He's quite the flavor enthusiast. Introduced me some really interesting cocktail book when we were hanging out in Vancouver last year before things shut down. Yeah, just lots of fun. Today, though, what a joy. Theo is so much fun. and really looking forward to continuing to work with this honey for our kombucha program. And thank you for watching today. Go to JagaSilk.com, click on the store. Especially in the fall, we'll probably have some single yard honey. In the meantime, come down to the store if you're in Victoria. We're COVID careful. We got a plexiglass. You can come by on Fridays and get drinks. The rest of the week, we're Tuesday to Friday. We do retail. You can always go to JagaSilk.com. Free shipping across Canada. Stay tuned for a cool new website that's coming out soon. We're also going to be starting a new project that we've been talking about for a couple months, the tea clinic. Lots of stuff happening. Stay tuned, and thank you for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.